Obama, with all his glow and halo, no more illegal wiretapping of American citizens, no more ignoring the law when it is convenient. No one should get a free pass to violate the basic civil liberties of the American people, not the President of the United States, not the telecom companies that fell in line with warrantless surveillance programs. But now the NSA can just go after everybody like a vacuum cleaner. But then they have a new problem. They've got so much data. How do you find somebody bad in there? That's why they didn't find the 911 hijackers ahead of time. It wasn't some badass conspiracy. It was Spinal Tap. And they'd over-spied on people so much, it was like looking for a needle in a football stadium. Now we get more of that. But at least some of the phone companies did their patriotic duty and cut off the FBI's wiretaps when they forgot to pay the phone bill. Now, I wonder if this list of all the people who turned around and voted yes on this surveillance bill, that was a little test to see who gets in Obama's cabinet and who doesn't. After all, as Margaret Thatcher used to say, everything must be business as usual. Yeah, you're with us or against us. Obama voted to confirm Condoleezza Rice. He voted for putting up that anti-immigrant Berlin Wall border fence and then admitted he just did it as a horse trade to get somebody else to vote for a bill he wanted through. That infamous quote, "Sometimes you have to trim your sails." Well, you look back at what he did, giving the NSA the right to spy on all of us and everything. I can't help but think of a grinning Obama slashing the Constitution with a box cutter as he trims the sails. More trimmed sails. He said he wants universal health care, but we can't have single payer because disease industry bean counters, you know, the health insurance industry, they might wind up unemployed, which is kind of like saying we have to let the mafia keep going because otherwise we'll have unemployed gangsters. Health insurance scam artists, quote, "need a seat at the table." Isn't the health insurance industry the problem? And 2005 Energy Policy Act, Obama voted tax breaks and subsidies for fossil fuels while Exxon was taking in $30 to $40 billion a year and the biggest profit any corporation has ever made. Even McCain voted against that one. And Obama, as far as alternative fuels goes, great idea. He says we should run our cars on liquefied coal. Wonder who bought his mouth for that one. Now he sides with the Bush Supreme Court on guns and said he's open to the idea of dropping nuclear weapons on Iran. He has praised Ronald Reagan for how he beat back, quote, "the excesses of the 60s and 70s, and replacing that with, quote, "a sense of dynamism and entrepreneurship that had been missing that some of us would call corruption." And if he's so law and order now over spying on suspected terrorists, meaning all of us, and executing child rapists, why not apply that same zeal to promising to investigate and prosecute crimes committed by the Bush administration? Reagan and Bush's father, these same people doing the same stuff, was there for all to see. Bill Clinton gets in and says, oh, shred all the files you want. We have to let bygones be bygones. And the problem is, if you don't put them in jail, these people have a habit of coming back. I mean, at least in Watergate, they sent people to jail so he didn't wind up having CIA Director G. Gordon Liddy, or Secretary of State Nixon, or something like that. I mean, if he's not going to prosecute, we should at least do what South Africa and others have done after overthrowing dictatorships and have a truth commission. In other words, what we get instead, business as usual. Another circus of an election year with rock-bottom candidates posing as humans, desperate for people to give them more money, to buy more TV time, to lie. Flat screen on the wall. Who is the best packaged? One of all. Who best disguises what a total asshole they really are. Hey, look at Obama go. He raised over $50 million in June alone. Where is it all going? More TV ads, salaries, not building houses for homeless people, not fixing up New Orleans or Afghanistan. No, ads, 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 ads. We don't have to have the other industrial complexes. Now we have the election industrial complex, enabled by both supposed opposing parties, where Republicans stand, of course, for greed, corruption, pollution, bigotry, and war, and Democrats stand for pretending to feel guilty about greed, corruption, pollution, bigotry, and war. Deal makers instead of leaders. Deal makers instead of leaders. I mean, John Kerry, Al Gore, Bill and Hillary Clinton, and yes, Obama, especially Pelosi, they're deal makers. They are not leaders. And the whole agenda is makeover instead of reform. Oh my God, I got in with these people. Finally, I've been elected. Now what do I do? Ah, fuck the voters, fuck the constituents. I need to be skulking around the halls of power, trying on as many different shades of brown lipstick as I can. And hey, if I've got so much on my face I look like Ronald McDonald, I can be a committee chair. And then if I use that to put so much brown lipstick on my face I look like Al Jolson, you can stick a nickel in it, then maybe I can be a lobbyist when I leave public service and then get to lobby the very next day for the corporations I was supposed to be regulating. Maybe they'll even let me on the board of directors. How do you hold somebody like that accountable when so many wide-eyed people who should know better, think it's mission accomplished just to belong to the Barack Obama fan club, and that's all they need to do? My biggest worry of all about the Barack star is that he's drawing so many inspired people into the process that if he does turn out to be business as usual, he's going to break the hearts of a whole generation who don't bother to participate in any way ever again, except writing a little blog read by 5 people. I don't know. I was crossing my fingers for a while, but legalizing the wiretaps showed me, yep, business as usual. I remember all too well somebody else who had the audacity to misuse people's hope as a Pied Piper for the corporate agenda, and his name is Bill Clinton. That's what worries me. So laugh at Ralph Nader or not, but I think he had something interesting to say a couple months ago. You're throwing away your vote if you allow and condone this behavior. But don't worry, they'll fix it anyway because neither Obama or Hillary have said a peep about vote fraud through touchscreen digital voting machines. How many of you saw the panel in here about the ES&S machines? And that was just one of the 4 manufacturers. How easy it is not to just use different ink to get people's paper ballots to switch, but you can even take out the little, I think it's a card thing, they give you a plastic thing and put your own. I think they were showing a Palm Pilot or something, weren't they? And you can not only change votes in that little voting machine, you can send a virus through the whole system that the county's never going to figure out was there. Well, one person can make a difference. Voting should not be privatized. And Greg Palast, who's done a lot of research on this and wrote The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, told me 2 days ago that he doesn't even think the fraud within the machinery is the worst problem this time around. It's that these same companies, ES&S and Sequoia and Premier, formerly Diebold, now the states are privatizing out to them, going over voter registration applications. They decide who gets to vote and get to decide who has a felony conviction on their record that they never knew existed because of, trying to vote while black or something like that. So even if 80% of the people fall for the Barack star, you may well see the Eraserhead baby as president instead. More good news. How many of you saw this? Mother Jones cover story on China that came out February of this year. Can the world survive China's rush to emulate the American way of life? And of course, trying to emulate the American way of life is mistake number 1, if you ask me, but perhaps somebody could do better. Lots of interesting statistics in here. China, these are all quotes coming up now. China has declared a logging ban on what little remained of its old-growth forests. Environmentalists applauded the idea until they grasped the corollary. Chinese companies began harvesting other countries' trees on a grander scale. And today, Thailand and the Philippines have been stripped of most of their forests, and Indonesia, Burma, and even Siberia could be gone in less than 20 years, mainly to supply wood to IKEA and Home Depot. And the way they do it in Russia is just to torch them, so they say, oh, forest fires, salvage the wood. And in 2003, there were so many fires that it blew the smoke into Seattle. And the dust blowing off China's ever-growing deserts is now coming to California. And I assumed it was the coal dust too, because now, even though my car's in the garage, every couple days I have to run the wipers to get this brown film off the windshield. Thank you, China. Let's see, what else have we got here? China adds 25,000 cars per day to its roads, and the number of cars is expected to grow from 33 million to 130 million over the next 12 years. And if the Chinese middle class, which are expected to go from 100 million up to 700 million, if they are ever going to reach our lifestyle, it will require the resources of several Earths. Yes. But fear not, even the Chinese government admits they now have at least 80,000 disturbances, read demonstrations, uprisings, and riots, every year there now. Not even the Chinese like getting gassed or killed if they don't obey or whatever, but according to Naomi Klein, in an article that only Rolling Stone, of all people, would print, China has a solution for that too. They call it the Golden Shield. And it will work where Chinese citizens will be watched around the clock through all these network closed caption TV cameras and remote monitoring of computers. They will be listened to on their phone calls, monitored by digital voice recognition technologies. Their internet access will be aggressively limited through the country's notorious system of online controls known as the Great Firewall. Their movements will be tracked through national ID cards with scannable computer chips and photos that are instantly uploaded to police databases and linked to the holder's personal data. The most important element of all, linking all these tools together in a massive searchable database of names, photos, residency information. When Golden Shield is finished, there will be a photo on those databases for every single person in China. 2006, the Chinese government mandated that all internet cafes, as well as restaurants and entertainment venues, install video cameras with direct feeds to police stations. Tibetan monks now complain that cameras activated by motion sensors are in their monasteries and even their prayer rooms. A lot of the technology has come from General Electric, Honeywell, and a shady company in Connecticut called LI Identity Solutions, the ones who make the fingerprint scanner that George Tenet is on the board of. And the Chinese, you know, they're pumping up dictators even we don't want to deal with in the third world so they can take the oil first. They're building aircraft carriers. Maybe a President Obama should say to these companies helping create this, sometimes you have to trim your sails. We don't dare say nothing about that because China now holds more than $1 trillion of public and private U.S. debt. That's the only reason Bush can get away with his budget deficits. We borrow from the Chinese, among others, which in a way means they can't switch to euros because it's in their best interest to keep the dollar alive if they ever want to get their money back. But if they ever get so mad at us for criticizing them for anything and skip even one of our bond auctions, we are toast. So what do we do now? Why not start a blog? Vent, ventity, vent, ventity, vent. Send! Mission accomplished. Yeah, I feel so much better now. I mean, I don't want to put down the existence of blogs. It's people becoming the media, And I hope we finally moved past this mindset of the internet is automatically right and that bloggers are automatically better than reporters, but not much. I mean, the blog explosion is in part, of course, because more and more people, even ones we wouldn't think are on our side, completely distrust the joke of corporate McNews. You know, they know not to believe the legion of castrati, who we might as well call them what they are these days, prostitutes. Oh my God, look at Anderson Cooper kick ass. His hair's blowing in the hurricane. God, he's got guts. He ain't gonna question Cheney though, that's for sure. I mean, the blogs, the best part is anyone can do it and anything goes. And the worst part is anyone can do it and anything goes. And some people poison it for everybody else by being a lot looser with the truth than CNN and Fox combined. Of course, now there are bloggers paid by corporations to look like your average citizen, enthusiastic for the corporation. According to Wired, the military is now thinking of hiring their own blogging brigade to promote their spin and message on things, or trash a specific critic they want to neutralize. Two interesting examples of how the corporate media uses younger independent media people are right in my hometown. The San Francisco Chronicle is one, who's now the only paper left, and thinks of themselves as the local New York Times, but now it takes even less time to read than the New York Times does, significantly less. And they devote more and more of their space to bloggers and reviews of bloggers, while Channel 4, who used to have a very reputable news department, keeps laying off their real reporters and just going through an endless conveyor belt of cub reporters and indie media people with a camera, perhaps because they don't have to pay them. Oh, wow, this is even better than reality shows. We don't have to spend money on anybody. We'll just use them all. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Recent study by Cardiff University in Wales concluded that 12%, at least of news stories in Great Britain, only 12% were entirely composed of material researched by reporters. 8% they couldn't really tell, but the other 80% was all based on secondhand stories, and only 12% of those were fact-checked at all. Bringing us into this weird, as Stephen Colbert calls it, weekiality, where everything is true because nothing is true, because everything is true because nothing is true. Most bloggers are pundits, not journalists. Cool to read, you can learn something from the good ones who do it well, but not very few of them actually do their own research, and for that reason, I don't quote blogs in my spoken word shows as a source unless I have something else to back it up besides the blog. Plus, the blogosphere should not ever be allowed to become a drug, where people are so into blogging with like-minded bloggers and they have all their like-minded news groups that they're all limiting themselves to this echo chamber where they all agree with each other all the time. I mean, you need outside opinions, you need dissent in order to figure out what's really going on out there in the big, bad world. And the answer to clueless or bullshit bloggers is not restrictions on bloggers, it's just continuing the effort and intensifying effort to get through to everybody how important it is to practice media literacy. I don't think people should graduate from high school till they pass a class on media literacy, but since they don't teach those classes, we have to teach it ourselves and point out to people young and old when there is out and out bullshit, especially if you laugh at it with them and then they never quite believe everything they see on CNN or Fox News again. In other words, don't just question authority, question bloggers. Because when you never know where anybody's coming from, especially in the blogosphere, especially if they're treating it as their own little drug, we all got to help everybody else develop better, sharper bullshit detectors. But what do you do if the bullshit is aimed at you, and you don't even know who's doing it because they're too chicken to sign their own names. I mean, there's some famous examples of this, like some swift boat type people accused Hillary Clinton of snubbing the Gold Star mothers. Yes, and never mind who the Gold Star mothers are. I mean, they're basically a support group for mothers of people who've died in combat and all. And it turned out she never did snub them. She did meet with them, and the Gold Star mothers have tried to get this misinformation off the net for years now, but it keeps popping up right alongside all the reports that Barack Obama is a secret Muslim. You know, you wonder if that's a professional job. I mean, the same with the 9/11 conspiracy theories. How many people who've fallen into becoming passionate believers in that trace back the origins of much of it to Lyndon LaRouche? I mean, this way, in the blogosphere, sure, you can become the media, but some people use, yeah, I can be my own Joseph Goebbels. I can be the new devil child of Karl Rove. Personal, individual swift boating against anybody I don't happen to like. Anyone can swift boat anyone else. And this has already been documented to influence local elections and cost people their offices based on stuff sent anonymously that didn't turn out to be true. Ex-lovers, former bosses can lie about you on the net. So can fired employees, for that matter. And as Winston Churchill once put it, a lie gets halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to get its pants on. But if a blogger says it, then it must be true. Well, twice this year this has happened to me. One of them came from the former bass player of Dead Kennedys, Klaus Fluoride, who of course was one of the people who sued me to swipe Dead Kennedys away, in large part because I didn't want to put Holiday in Cambodia in a Levi's commercial. Well, and by lying in court and using big corporate lawyers, they swiped all the rights to Dead Kennedys. It now goes out on a label called Manifesto that I have no respect for at all. They are managed by a guy who, his other main client is a Christian folk artist. And they continue to this day to do fake reunion shows with pictures of me in the ads. But nevertheless, there goes Klaus whining on the internet, sending it out to punk news groups, putting it up on his MySpace, when Dirk Dirksen, the entrepreneur of Mabuhay Gardens, where a lot of us like Avengers and the Dills, Crime Nuns, later Dead Kennedys and Flipper all got their start. He died last year, and so there was a memorial concert for him, and Klaus put on, "How dare Jello Biafra bar me from going to the show and saying goodbye to Dirk?" Never mind, the service had already happened. What he didn't say in his blog was that the venue itself 86'd Klaus and East Bay Ray years ago for the way they mistreat so many other people in the scene and all. They wouldn't let him in the door even if I wanted to let him in the door. But oh no, immediately you get little hits on the blogs. Oh, Bong Bear talks about what a terrible person I am. Oh, and Anarchy Muffin is just in stitches about what an evil person I am. What can we do? And even some old friends fell for that one, which really pisses me off. All of them without ever stopping to ask if it was true. And then an ex-girlfriend of mine decided to do some internet mischief to get back at me. First, she MySpaced my current girlfriend, documenting all these kinky sexual perversions, real and imagined, not mentioning which ones were her idea, in hopes of driving the current girlfriend away. That backfired when the current girlfriend said, "Well, yeah, I realize it's kind of weird, but some of this sounds kind of cool. Why didn't you tell me about some of this?" And I wind up getting a kinkier girlfriend than the last time. So then she tried again and put up a blog on a pop punk news group about how evil I was, saying she was a kept woman and not allowed to leave my house and not allowed to have her own friends, when the opposite was true. She clung. And that's why I broke up in part. And saying that I kept weapons in my car in case I found Ray and Klaus because I intended to kill them. Which I'm sure those people's lawyers are going to have a field day when they decide to strike again. and whatnot. And sure enough, just like the last time, there's Mohawk Elf and Mushroom Boy or whoever, and even Jim Testa from Jersey Beat just parroting along about how evil and bad I am without ever asking themselves if any of it is true. And this can really fuck the lives up of innocent people. I may be the big, bad, small-time underground celebrity here, but in a way, I'm defenseless. I'm David and they're Goliath. I'm Iraq and they're Blackwater. Why? Because I'm the visible target that some wankers love to talk shit about, while the liar stays invisible and therefore avoids being a target because nobody cares that much about them to gossip about them and everything. If a blogger says it, then it must be true. Welcome to high school. Well, I got news for you. I learned long ago that no one should waste their time fighting childish little internet or fanzine wars with people with too much time on their hands, so chicken shit they won't even sign their own goddamn names. I don't care what Metal Skunk or Ladybug Ninja or anybody else thinks of me. As the great philosopher Jerry Lee Lewis once said, I am what I am. So you can take your little cyber potato American Idol beauty contest and fuck you. I'll just be me. But this got me thinking, we are rapidly approaching an age where everybody, because of this and YouTube and whatnot, is going to be under their own our-town version of Britney Spears Klieg lights, and our own personal reputations trashed on YouTubes and poison pin nasty blogs before anybody is even old enough to drink. Thus leaving people with no one to be inspired or influenced by, because look at them, everybody sucks. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? At least it levels the playing field. At the same time, this risks people being desensitized to really bad behavior by genuine assholes, because look at them. Everybody's an asshole to anybody. You can't trust anyone. No trust, no respect, no admiration, no inspiration. I mean, in a way, the explosion of virtual communities on the internet shows how isolated and lonely we are in our self-imposed virtual cocoons. It shows a deep, desperate hunger to, as the phone company said, reach out and touch someone and have some meaningful connection to others without leaving your desk or cubicle, I guess. 3 sociologists who worked at the University of Arizona and Duke University did a 20-year study from 1985 to 2004 that showed a sharp decline in the number of people the average American discussed anything meaningful with. Fewer close relationships with coworkers, neighbors, even family, even friends. I mean, if the World Wide Web is bringing everybody together, how come we're getting more and more disconnected? I fear that my spacing out and Facebooking your face and all that is leading to a generation. I don't think middle school people, especially, and people younger, should feel this intense peer pressure that they have to advertise, package, and market themselves as a product on the internet just to validate their existence as a human being in order to make friends. Granted, some of this can be funny, like, some people package themselves a little different than they actually are, especially if they're older, divorced, and want to get laid or something. Reminds me of that Beavis and Butthead episode where they call up a dial-a-porn number and get this really sultry voice on the other end, and then they go to the other end, and there's this old woman with a cigarette and half her hair gone, sitting in a trailer and all. That kind of reminds me of this. Zippy the Pinhead had a great one on this too. My Facebook page is up and running, and I'm already friending every dry cleaner in a tri-state area. Yow! I'm getting attacked now. Why did I wait so long to open myself up to abuse like this? I feel validated, humiliated, and 13 all over again. A lawyer from Google had this to say to the New York Times a while back: young people don't